What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about another horror film. With it being the fall season, I always get excited to watch horror movies, and as you can tell, a lot of my content is horror related right now. And this is a rare occurrence where I'm watching a remake of a movie that I've never seen the original. And the reason why I approached it this way is because I've seen a lot of people talk about that they like this remake more than the original, which is really unusual. As I've talked about remakes multiple times on my channel before, a lot of times you get very underwhelming movies when it comes to remakes. And I knew nothing about this before going in to watch it. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The Town That Dreaded Sundown is directed by Alfonso Gomez-Rejon. A masked maniac terrorizes the same small town community where a murderer known as the Phantom Killer struck decades earlier. So I was really looking forward to watching this movie, especially with all of the people who say they like it more than the original. And I'm not sure I understand the hype. I was not a big fan of this movie. There are things about it that I really appreciate, especially when it comes to the style and the cinematography of the film. But I feel like overall, it's just relatively cliche. It doesn't do anything outside of the realm of a normal slasher film. Most of the characters in this movie are underwhelming and uninteresting. I do like some of the choices, which I'll talk about as I break the movie down. Let's get into it right now. So in this movie, we are dropped into Texarkana, which is right on the border of Texas and Arkansas. And we're dropped into this community that is having a drive-in film festival, and we're introduced to our lead character, Jamie, played by Addison Timlin, who is in the car with her boyfriend. They drive off away from the drive-in screening, and her boyfriend gets murdered by the masked killer known as the Phantom. But in this town, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the original film, is a movie, and everyone in the community knows about the movie and about the man who directed it, and they were at the drive-in watching this movie. And the killer murders Jamie's boyfriend and says, "You need to tell the entire town about me or I'll kill again." And so she goes back to the drive-in. She's traumatized. The police take her in and they end up giving her 24/7 watch. Cops are always around her. And of course, a series of killings begins in this small town. And the entirety of the film is Jamie and the police officers trying to figure out who this masked murderer is. So like I said, I don't really understand the hype behind this movie. I will start with some of the positives. For starters, I really love the way this movie is shot. It feels like something from a completely different era, especially when you look at just some of the comical lighting in the movie. It feels very dramatic, and I like that. It gives the film personality, and it's doing something different that you don't often see in this type of a movie. And I think it's trying to add to some of the very overly theatrical dialogue from some of these characters. Some of the actors in this movie are really going for it in a way that sometimes works and in other times doesn't. But I think the lighting kind of attributes to that and creates a very distinct atmosphere. I like the practical effects in this movie. There's some really cool scenes. They rehash some things from the original, from the clips that I've seen of the original, in particular a kill that utilizes a trombone, which I liked all of those, but most of the kill scenes are pretty run-of-the-mill for a slasher movie, not really doing anything that we haven't seen before. There's a kill in a car in particular that the amount of blood used was just almost laughable how much excess there was. But for the most part, I liked the practical effects of the movie. The look of the killer, very simplistic, the burlap sack over their head, which just reminds me of Friday the 13th Part 2. But the simplistic look of the killer, I'm fine with all that. The problem is there's just nothing all that interesting here. The characters are incredibly hollow. Our lead character, they try to add the dramatic backstory of her parents are dead. She's living with her grandma. She wants to go somewhere different to go to college, but her character just feels very lifeless, and so do most of the people in the community. They try to add characters that have like really abrasive personalities. Like you have the minister that everyone in the town loves, all the police officers that are working on the case. They try to almost over overact, but none of them are interesting enough to really hold your attention. And I kept just trying to find some character or group of characters that was going to keep me invested in what was going on in the movie. And unfortunately, I never did. And I feel like even in a lot of these other movies I've been watching recently, like some of the early 2000s trash, most of the time you can find characters that are interesting enough to want to hold your attention. And this movie just didn't have it. And I feel like the twist reveal at the end as to who the killer is just wasn't all that interesting to me. I didn't find it to be all that shocking. When you think about slasher films in the past, I always go to one of the greatest, which is Wes Craven's Scream, and the intentions behind it and the way that the reveal is done. And in this particular case, I just didn't feel like it provided a whole lot or really did something to keep me captivated. And the word I would use to describe this movie as a whole is lackluster. It just doesn't feel like it adds anything into the slasher realm that I haven't seen before or that would make me inclined to revisit it. I think of a lot of like slasher remakes, and I'd be way more inclined to watch like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot from the 2000s before this. Like it was more well put together and I liked the characters better. And there are a few remakes like that throughout the years that I would say the same about. But yeah, this movie, I don't have much more to say because I feel like it was just relatively bland. So have you seen The Town That Dreaded Sundown? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was underwhelming, which is unfortunate because I've heard a lot of great things about it in the past. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.